The Fathom is Loaded's long-distance pushing and commuting bracket setup. It's a 33-inch setup. It's a beautiful board, and it's specifically designed for long-distance pushing, for commuting, for fitness skating, within town, to work, to school, or across the country. The sky's the limit. If you're new to brackets, these are brackets. You can see here, these are pieces of composite material that are bolted onto the deck. The deck itself is much shorter. So the deck is 23-inch long only. And the brackets here are made by G-Bomb. If you don't know who G-Bomb is the world's undisputed leader in bracket manufacturing. They're very well known in the LDP world. LDP is in long distance pushing, including for competition. So these are competition grade brackets, and they're specifically made based on Loaded's own specifications. They're actually called the Loaded Zee Brackets. Bracket setups result in really low riding boards. This board is extremely low riding, which makes it a great pusher. It's very effortless to push on this board. That's only one of the advantages. Another one is the wheel clearance. You can see here the brackets allow for these huge wheels. These are dead buds. They're 105 millimeter wheels, so they're really big. And without a bracket setup, it's really, you would need risers to allow for such big wheels. With this setup, you don't even need risers, which means your ride is still, the ride height is still as low as can be. Another thing about the Loaded specific, the Z brackets, is that they're double drop brackets. You can see here, this is a drop through setup, so that the trucks here are mounted across the brackets, and at the same time there's this big drop here, drop through and drops. That's the definition of double drop. So the Loaded brackets, Z brackets, are the only brackets out there, or one of the only ones that are actually double drop. Even G-Bomb's own brackets are usually top mount, like the glass doors, for example. So again, bracket setup means tons of clearance for the wheels, and they're really low ride. The bigger the wheels, the faster the roll. You can roll extremely fast. This is basically an alternative to a bike. Another thing is you get a really long roll. Just check it out. Just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling. It's also great rollover power. You can pretty much roll over anything with these wheels. So the great thing about the bracket setup, again, is that you don't have to raise the trucks here in order to run these wheels. Now, if we look at the deck itself, again, it's only 23-inch long, so it's shorter than even a mini cruiser. It's a really short deck, but you can see it's quite wide at 9.25-inch wide. So you can definitely fit your feet across, even if you're a size 12 like me or a size 13. The length is still good enough to fit both feet end to end. What you need to do when you're pushing, when you're doing long distance pushing or skogging, and you're alternating, you're pushing legs. So at one point you need to put both your feet so you can switch your leg, right? So you're gonna put your back foot here, for example, and your front foot, and then you're just gonna start putting with the other leg, with the alternate leg. Also, the bracket setup allows for more sophisticated geometry. You can see here, the corners are upturned here, and these serve as foot stoppers that basically eliminate the risk of wheel bite. So again, it's the brackets that are quite narrow that allow for these kinds of great advanced features on the deck. If we look in comparison at the Loaded Pantheon trip, you can see this one here isn't a bracket setup. It's just a regular drop down or double drop setup. You can see also it's drop through, and it's got a drop deck as well, but the neck is much more flashed out. It's much wider, so it has a lot less clearance for the wheels. These are actually dead buds as well. You would need some risers to make sure there's no wheel bite. Usually I run this with smaller wheels like the Kaguamas, for example, not with the dead buds. I've just put them on just to try them. But it's definitely there's definitely not as much clearance as with the bracket setup. As I mentioned before, it's only 33-inch long, so it's a relatively compact setup. It's also quite lightweight in spite of the big wheels here. I believe the deck only is like 3.1 pounds. The Kaguamas setup would be 8.4 pounds, and the dad bod setup is 9-something pounds. So it's still, very easy to carry around, and you can definitely take it onto a train or a bus when commuting, and you can easily stash it under your desk or in a closet. Another great thing is that it's a modular setup. You can easily dismount it. You can easily take off the brackets, and then the whole board would fit into a small bag. Another great thing about the bracket setup is that here we're running 150mm Paris trucks. These are relatively narrow trucks, even though we have those big wheels. In the non-bracket setup, you'd have the wheels underneath the deck, right? So you wouldn't be able to run such narrow trucks. You'd need wider trucks to make sure that the deck doesn't touch the wheels. Here we have this narrow 150mm truck, which results in a much more responsive ride. I mean, you can feel the difference when you run narrow trucks. The overall board gets a lot more responsive and nimble. The Trip here is running 165mm trucks. An important point to note about the Loaded Fathom with the Zee Brackets is that it's a symmetrical setup in terms of base plate angle. The rear and front truck have the same base plate angle, which is 50 degrees. 50 degree is basically neutral. That is, it's got a balanced lean to turn kind of ratio, and it's ideal for long distance pushing. The brackets themselves, the loaded brackets, have a 0 degree angle. That is, they don't change, they don't wedge the trucks. So we actually have 50 degrees in the front and in the back here. A lot of bracket setups out there are designed for pumping, so they have a different angle in the front and the back. They're actually directional setups as opposed to symmetrical. So they'll have a lower angle in the rear than in the front in order to get more forward motion when pumping. The Loaded Fathom is specifically designed again for pushing, distance pushing, as opposed to pumping. Unlike the G-Bomb glass doors, for example, the Loaded Zee Brackets are not adjustable. You can't change the angle of the bracket. That said, if you want to experiment with asymmetrical directional setups and pumping, Loaded gives you an option when you order the board to also order a 43 degree base plate, additional base plate as an add-on, so that you can experiment with a lower rear truck, a lower angle rear truck. Loaded also said they will be releasing future setups that are specifically geared toward pumping. So again, these are the dad bods. They're 105mm huge wheels, super fast, super long roll, great rollover. And I actually have a complete review on the dad bods. You can also order the Fathom with the Kaguamas instead of the dad bods. So the Kaguamas are smaller. They're 85mm instead of 105. So they're a little bit lighter. You'll get faster acceleration, a little bit more nimble, and they might be better suited for maybe going over some sidewalks and so on. You can get them in 80A Duro, 78A Duro, depending on the kind of riding you do. In terms of design, this is another loaded piece of art. So you can see here the pattern on the grip tape is really nice. Here the grip tape is reinforced for better grip when pushing really hard and riding really fast. And the bottom of the deck has some really nice artwork that represents the Polynesian history of navigation, exploration, and travel. So yeah, great board, my go-to for distance commuting and also for fitness skating. I mean, it's a great workout when you're pushing and you don't even feel the miles. You can push for hours on end without getting tired. It's a fantastic workout.